Welcome to Conversations with Corrections, hosted by the Utah Department of Corrections. This occasional podcast features staff, incarcerated individuals, and other stakeholders of the UDC discussing issues that impact corrections, both nationally and within the state of Utah. Here is today's host, Department Spokesman Liam Trouchard.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Corrections. I'm Liam Trouchard, and today we're joined by Patrick Jones. Patrick is a formerly incarcerated individual here in Utah and has gone on to be successful post-release. Patrick, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. Now, Patrick, how long ago were you in one of our facilities?
So I was released in June of 2016.
Okay. And while you were at Utah State Prison, correct?
Yes.
While you were there, in what ways did you prepare for your release?
So when I got to the Draper facility, because I was originally at Gunnison, while at Gunnison, I did the HOPE program. Then went to Draper, enrolled into DATC. I was trying to get into the welding program, but it was full. At that time, I didn't have a parole date. I was on a life sentence, and you had to self-pay if you wanted to go to DATC. So I did. I did the mechanics program while waiting for a spot in the weld program. And then when that came up, I was able to get in it. And then during the time I was in the weld program, I went back to the parole board and actually got a parole date.
So when were you released?
June of 2016.
June of 2016. And yes. Obviously you've successfully completed probation. And now what do you do?
I am now a journeyman pipe fitter, plumber, and welder for the United Association Union.
And that's in Pennsylvania, correct?
I am currently working out of Pennsylvania, yes.
Okay. So now you and I were talking previously about some of the benefits that you had while incarcerated. Tell me, obviously you got into these programs. How much did that benefit you when you were here?
It benefited me actually quite a lot while I was there. It's not only was I learning a trade, but it gave me something to do productively with my time instead of sitting back in the section and hanging out with everybody and getting in the middle of all the stuff that seems to happen.
Now, since that time, obviously you successfully completed parole. There's still challenges, right, from your past?
Absolutely. I've got a friend who just was released to Utah from federal prison, and he's facing challenges. So I know every state's different. Utah, one of the challenges is housing, because a lot of places asks for if you're a convicted felon or not, and they won't rent to felons. That's not so much the case here, but one of the challenges I face here is due to one of my charges, not a conviction, just a charge for an attempted murder, I cannot work in a school unless it's being built from the ground up. If it's a school that's on vacation, because of that charge, I cannot work there. However, as long as I'm honest and forthcoming, I can work in a nuclear facility. So, I mean, there's still challenges every day.
But even with those challenges, would you say your life is better now?
Absolutely, 100%. I wouldn't trade my worst day out here for my best day in there.
Now, you're married, correct?
Yes.
And how long have you been married?
I've been married 7 years.
So that would put you got married while at the Utah State Prison?
I did.
What was that like?
I would recommend waiting for anybody, because as far as Draper went, it was nothing special. Just as the peace came up, A friend of mine who was also my roommate came up to be my best man, and that was about it. You're allowed one other guest. It is not a great place to do it. I would suggest waiting. I mean, I'm grateful that I've married my wife. She's an amazing woman. But as far as wanting to have a memory or something like that of your wedding, I wouldn't advise doing it in prison.
So it wasn't a place where you could have a big party, is what you're saying.
Right. Not a big party. Can't dress up. No pictures.
So, what would you say to someone who was in your shoes a decade ago?
Quite a few things, but the main thing would be, I sat and spun my wheels for over 20 years being incarcerated because I spent 10 years in federal prison, was released for 3 months to a halfway house, and managed to violate and go back for another 10 years to Utah State. One of my biggest issues was I didn't have a trade. I didn't have anything to fall back on. Being able to go to DATC changed my life. It was one of the things that I figured out, because I would get on as a laborer somewhere or as an apprentice for a non-union place and not be making very much, $9, $10 an hour, which when you think about it, it doesn't really pay the bills. It doesn't cut it. People like me with my background, and most of the people in state prison or federal prison will tell you, when you start stressing on paying bills and stressing for money, it's easy to fall back into old behaviors because you can make money running out on the streets and pay and not even have to worry about your bills because you don't care anymore. So I would say get in a trade. Get in a trade and learn it, especially the weld program. It changed my life 100%. I went from not making very much money and not knowing a trade to last year I pulled 6 digits.
Wow.
Yeah. It blew my mind that in 6 years I was able to achieve that. And it's possible for anybody. I make a great wage. My insurance is covered. Throughout the last few years, I got prostate cancer, had to have my prostate removed, and I paid $20. I mean, my insurance is phenomenal. I cannot complain. And just that alone, I have a pension, I have an annuity, and then I make a good wage on top of that. I make $44 an hour besides everything else that's paid for. So education, learning a trade, I can't stress it enough. I just can't.
Now, I want to make sure I keep it real here. You're riding a wave right now, and things are going well. But a decade ago, there were some dark times, correct?
Oh, a decade ago, I was sitting in there on a 5 to life with the parole board giving me a rehearing, wanting a psychological evaluation, and I had no clue if I was going to ever get out again. None. I don't have the best past at all. And I knew if they were going to give me a chance, it was going to be my only one. So I had 2 options. I could either just accept defeat and embrace spending the rest of my life in prison and not giving a crap, or I could figure out what I needed to change and try and change it in the hopes that the parole board would give me another chance, so that if they did, I could make it out here.
So we talked about a little bit about the welding program and how that helped, and the mechanical program and how you got into that. Was there any other treatment or programs that you participated in that you would recommend to others who are currently now where you were?
So I did the HOPE program. I did the CARE program when they split it off into Gale and Gunnison. And, I know a lot of people fight that program and they call it a RAP program, but it doesn't have to be. You can buy into the therapeutic side of it, and you can make some really good changes in yourself by taking assignments seriously, and then not have to feed into the other crap. And, for me, it helped a lot. There was a lot of stuff that I still needed to work on and needed to own. so that I could move on with my life and become a better person.
What you're saying is that it all basically started with you, correct?
That's the only place it can start, because this is where a lot of people fail, is they think they can change somebody else. You can't change anybody else. They have to want to change from within. Most people do. Most people aren't happy spending their life sitting in prison or going back and forth, but they don't know a better way, or they don't think that they can get into those programs. I never thought I'd be able to, but I was, and I did. But yeah, change has to begin within you. You have to want it.
Was there anything that prompted you to start wanting to change? Was it there a moment, an event, or anything that said to you, "Hey, this isn't where I want to be"?
Yeah, there was. Sorry. I lost my little brother a couple years after I was rearrested. I was sitting in ADC waiting to go back to Utah State Prison. And I lost him to an overdose. They wouldn't allow me to go to his funeral because they were I'm sorry, this is hard for me to keep my composure a little bit. They were afraid of gang retaliation for what I was being incarcerated for at that time. So they did not want me to go to the funeral, and at that point, I really realized how short life is, and that this just wasn't for me anymore, because he was my best friend in the whole world. So sitting there in ADC and having that news delivered to me, told I can't go to the funeral, and looking at a possible life sentence, that's when it changed for me. That's when the light finally clicked, and I told myself, I have to do everything I can to get out and stay out.
Tell me and tell others what it's been like since you've been out. I mean, we've hit the highlights about all the good things that are happening, but I mean, it's a day-to-day thing, correct?
Absolutely. Any given moment, I could feed into the person I used to be, lose my temper, and end up right back in jail and prison. I mean, with my record, nobody's going to give me a second chance. It doesn't matter all the good I've done in the last 5 or 6 years. What matters is all the bad I've done for the many years I did it. So it is an everyday struggle, 100%. I have to keep myself in check. I have to recognize what my triggers are for wanting to cover up feelings and go use and abuse drugs. Every day is a struggle. Some days are great days, you know what I mean, where it's a walk in the park. Some days I just want to lock myself in a room and bang my head on the wall because it gets frustrating.
What gets you through those days?
My dogs, my wife, and usually we'll just go do something. You know what I mean? She'll see that I'm struggling. She'll pick me up and tell me, hey, let's go for a walk, or let's go down to the river or something.
What advice would you give others to be able to reach a level of success that to them seems completely unattainable?
You got to take it one step at a time. You can't try and take everything on at once and focus on the big picture. You got to focus on little tiny things at a time. And what I mean by that is, like with myself, I had to work on some issues with myself. I did the whole program. I needed a trade. I did that. There was a lot of other classes that I took as well while I was in there. The personal communication classes and stuff like that while I was in the Okers. Those things are all great. They teach you skills. They teach you proper communication skills, because a lot of us don't know how to communicate properly with people. We're used to communicating with everybody in prison, which, when you talk to somebody that way out here, they look at you cross-eyed like you're nuts, because it's just a different lingo. It's just a different communication set. And I would tell them, you got to be realistic with yourself. It's not a walk in the park, but you have to be willing to put forth the time and the effort and not accept defeat. Officer, when I was in ADC, I did the life skills class in there, which was a great class. And the officer teaching it gave me some very, very good advice that I have taken to heart. And he said, always make them tell you no. I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, here's an example. You're out applying for jobs, and everybody's telling you don't apply there because they don't hire felons. He said, go apply there. Make them tell you no. Always make them tell you no, because until they tell you no, you never know. It could be a yes.
Well, Patrick, those were all the questions I had for you. Was there anything you'd like to share or add or let folks here in Utah know about you?
Just sure. I just like to say that, I'm doing this interview not to brag about where I'm at in life. I'm doing it because if people looked at my record and my past and look at where I'm at today, right now, they tell you no way. That's not possible. Well, it is possible. I've got a terrible record. I've got a terrible past. Been involved with gangs. You can do it. That's why I'm here, to stress to you that you can do it, and that is not a place to live your life in there. It seems great and it seems cool when you first get in. When you're starting to push 50 and all your friends are either doing life in prison or dying, then you finally realize that's not the place. You know what I mean? It's just not. It can be done. If I can do it, anybody in there can.
Patrick, thank you very much for your time today and for joining us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And to everybody else, thank you for joining us. We hope you have a pleasant day and take care.
This has been Conversations with Corrections from the Utah Department of Corrections. These podcasts are on our website at corrections.utah.gov or on the UDC YouTube page. Suggestions for a future topic can be sent to corrections@utah.gov. Thank you for joining us.